As we have seen, everyone has an award these days, or so it seems, so why shouldn't we? Let's play our own version of Most Valuable Player. Some non-traditional categories, starting with the relievers. Guys, Most Valuable Bullpen Arm. JP, we begin with you.
I like Kenley Jansen, but I had to stick up for another JP in this one. JP Howell.
Imagine that.
Yeah, being the only left-hander pretty much out of the bullpen for the Dodgers from start to finish this season, JP Howell had a very large task in front of him, and he was so steady. Great numbers this season, and fulfilled a very valuable role.
Nomar, how about for you?
Well,
Most
listen,
valuable bullpen arm.
You mentioned it, but I'm going to have to go with Kenley Jansen. I mean, I know the value of that closer, closing out the game, and not just because that's when you know you're winning and he's walking off and you're high-fiving, but he shortens the game. A guy as an offensive playing behind someone like this, knowing that if we have the lead and we're handing it over, that he's closing it out, it just makes the game so much easier for the rest of the team.
Dodgers bench was a big question mark back in the spring, but turned out to be a pretty good bench. So how about your most valuable player on the bench?
Got to go with Justin Turner. Justin Turner was a guy who we really didn't know what to expect from being his first year with the Dodgers. By the end of the year, Don Mattingly was saving his pinch hitters in the early innings so that Justin Turner could bat in the 8th or the 9th in those clutch situations. This is a guy who, if he had enough at-bats to qualify, he would have led the majors in batting average with runners in scoring position. For people who criticized the Dodgers hitting in the clutch, you could not criticize Turner.
It's an excellent point. Well, for me, I'll tell you, I stuck with Justin Turner as well. I mean, how can you not? I mean, really, it was that good of a season. I mentioned about Clayton Kershaw, but you could, and Adrian Gonzalez possibly the second MVP of that team, but you could make a strong argument about Justin Turner possibly being that second MVP of the team because he was that important coming off the bench, filling in admirably for guys who got hurt too.
Yeah, the best hitter with runners in scoring position, also hit .340 on the season. How about the most valuable clubhouse guy?
This is a tough call for me, but the one guy I kept coming back to was Juan Uribe. The reason is Juan Uribe is one of those guys who just seems to lighten the mood wherever he goes. He keeps it loose in the clubhouse. He brings a smile to guys' faces. And you remember at the end of the season when Don Mattingly had to pick somebody to be the manager for a day, he picked Juan Uribe. Juan's a veteran guy, smart, keeps it loose, well-liked. He brings a lot to that clubhouse, and I pick Juan Uribe.
And Juan Uribe is definitely important to the Dodgers, no question about it. But I was going with Andre Ethier. And the reason I went with Andre is the importance that he meant to this team this year. We know about the outfield situation, but how about coming down the stretch? And when you were interviewing Justin Turner, who came through the clutch, and how he consistently came off the bench, he mentioned Andre Ethier had a big impact on that, just the way he handled the situation. Don Mattingly mentioned that as well. Not even prompted about or even asked about Andre Ethier, and they both brought him up. He was vital to that clubhouse.
Yeah, Andre Ethier was incredibly professional throughout the entire 2014 season. All right, let's look ahead to next season. Give me a player, guys, who has the most to prove in 2015.
Well, I have to go with the highest paid pitcher in baseball history, Clayton Kershaw, just because of that. It's not that there are guys who are coming off of worse seasons. Obviously, Clayton Kershaw was the National League MVP this year. But when you get paid like that, and when you've done so much at such a young age in your baseball career, all eyes are going to be on this guy to do something amazing. Clayton Kershaw has set the bar very high. Next year is the first year when his big extension kicks in, and the Dodgers are going to need him to be the ace of the staff. And every year of that contract, as far as I'm concerned, Clayton Kershaw is going to have the most to prove.
And that postseason, I'm sure, has something to do with it as well. And for me, I actually got a position player and a pitcher, and I'm going Yasiel Puig. I mean, obviously, didn't play in Game 4. There's a reason for that. The league is finding him out, and he's going to have to make adjustments and coming in next year. And then Brian Wilson. When you get Brian Wilson, you were hoping he was going to be the setup guy for Kenley Jansen to hand it over to him, and he just wasn't that guy. He needs to either go find out, try to find that velocity, if there were some issues maybe that we didn't know about throughout the entire year, but hopefully if he can be the guy that you expect him to be or what he is in the past, then that's a potent back end of a bullpen.